Breland in the studio. How are you, man? Everything good?
Good, man. How are you?
Fantastic. We were talking about Lyft ratings earlier. Breland's got a 5-star rating on Lyft.
That's true.
Your Uber rating was what? What was the Uber rating?
4.8.
4.8. Mine's low. It's 4.6. It's really not good.
I mean, I'm sure there's someone listening who's under 4, and that's when you should really start.
Do you think I was insensitive about it? How I'm saying that my 4.6 is not a great score?
Like,
is that insensitive?
If we were to really, multiply that out, your 4.6 would be an A rating.
You could round up, actually.
Oh, I just mean if you if you want to round up to the nearest digit,
I'm a 5.
You're closer to 5 than you are to 4.
I'm closer to 5 than I am to 4.
Yeah.
But there's someone out there who's a 3 who's trying really hard.
Struggling. Just to pass.
And potentially is listening to this and thinking it's insensitive
Right.
that I'm complaining about my 4.6. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Did you hear about this? Did you hear about Luke Combs over the weekend? Did you hear about this? Apparently his voice was a little raspy. So he refunded everybody who was at his stadium show. He refunded everybody. Still performed. I'm sure he sounded fine, but he made this big announcement at the beginning. He was like, my voice is a little under the weather, so I'm going to refund everyone, but I'm still going to play the show.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because it happened the same weekend that The Weeknd
lost his voice, right?
Lost his voice, and then did not play the show. He also refunded the tickets, but he didn't play at all.
Something going around.
I mean, I just think in general, people don't understand the pressure that is on each performer who's singing live to deliver a vocal that's consistent with what they're hearing on the record and consistent with what they give on tour. But it's a lot of work vocally, and if you play the third night, maybe fourth night in a row on a back-to-back, you're playing an hour 15 each. You might not have gotten the most sleep. Your body needs time to recover, and the voice is a really sensitive muscle. So I definitely don't fault them for being in that position. I'm sure I'll be in that position at some point. But the way that they both went about it and being two of the biggest stars in general, but in their respective fields, and how country responds and how pop responds, it's two different things. You're going to just straight up cancel the show in the pop world, and at least based on how Luke played it, I think people will try to give what they can.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of cool, actually. It was kind of a cool moment that he was like, we're going to power through this, but wanted to let you know that my voice is a little under the weather, and he sort of approached it head on. How important is it when you're performing? Do you think, is it more about vocal perfection, or is it more about putting on a great show and bringing good energy and bringing a good vibe?
I'm a vocalist, so that is a big part of what I do, and I use my voice in a lot of different ways on a lot of different songs. What I'm doing on Throw It Back is different than what I'm doing on Praise the Lord, is different than what I'm doing on a ballad. So I do want to be able to give the best vocal performance that I can, and I would say in general, I give a better overall performance when I feel confident about how I sound vocally, but it's probably from an audience perspective more important to just give them a great show. And I can usually make up for what I'm lacking vocally on a particular day with physical energy, storytelling in between songs, trying to make it more personal. But yeah, I mean, they both matter.
When you're lacking vocally, what does that mean? That you feel like you're a little pitchy, or you feel like you're not sounding as full as you maybe normally sound? Like, how do you tell if you're lacking?
I'm probably not going to be pitchy, but I may just not have as much falsetto one day. My range may be limited. I might be a little hoarse. And I've gotten pretty good at getting through sets without having the full complement of skills that I might normally have or might prefer to have. I haven't had to cancel any shows yet, but I'm also new to this, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
I feel like everybody does it at some point.
At some point.
Do you have perfect pitch? You don't have perfect.
I don't have perfect pitch. I have pretty good relative pitch.
Pretty good relative pitch.
Yeah.
So when because you're playing with InEars, right? So
Correct.
When you're confident that you're not pitchy, do you just have really good ears and you can just tell, or you can just hear really well?
Even if it's not as good of a mix in the ears, I know. I mean, we rehearse a lot, and we've been playing the same songs now for a while. Even the new records, we've rehearsed a bunch to introduce them into our set. But I usually can tell where we need to be. Like the beginning of my song "Natural" kind of comes in a little cold, so I can't hear really where the bass and the guitar are to help center my pitch. I kind of just have to come in. And so far, I've been like 20 for 20 on the road this summer of coming in on that, despite not having any chordal information to guide me.
Wouldn't it be kind of easy to put a little reference thing in the ears?
I always say that, and and honestly, I'm sure we probably will do
Who's
that.
the
at
music
some point.
director? Who-
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make sure we work on it. But also now that we're so locked in, and I have yet to get it wrong, I kind of would need to get it wrong first
to motivate
really,
the team
to justify and be like, see, I messed up, because they're like,
we need
you
to
always,
bring something in. Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
How long did it take to put the set together?
I mean, it's been kind of a work in progress. As we put out more music, we'll try out new songs, unreleased songs in our set. So it's kind of been in flux, especially because the shows that we're playing are all different. Like, we might play a 45-minute opening slot for Brett Eldridge or for Nelly or, you know, for Russell Dickerson or something, but then we might play a headline show the next night, or then we might do an acoustic radio performance and do an hour acoustic, and then we might come back the next day and play a festival, and we've got 35 minutes in the middle of the day. Like, these are all different shows, different crowds, different places. So we're still figuring out our set, and it's constantly changing with whatever the demands of the venue, the audience, you know, who shows up.
So when you're playing with tracks, because you play along to tracks, right?
I play with tracks and with the band.
And the last time I saw you play, you had a drummer and a guitar player. Has the band expanded since then, or is that still kind of what it looks like?
Yeah, we've got drums, guitar, and bass.
Because you didn't always have a bass player, right? It used to be. Am I wrong about that? I saw you play in DC. Ashley Cook was opening.
Yeah.
And
I think it was probably. Yeah, I think it was.
Phone's going off. Let's silence it. Hang on. What were you saying?
I was gonna say. I think it is. I think it is just the two. It was just the two at the time. Yeah, but we always have a third guy. It's just a matter of when it makes sense to bring him and when it doesn't make sense to bring him, more financially than anything.
Yeah, right. So, but when you're playing with tracks, do you have like all of your songs that you could possibly play in the tracks, and then do you sort of cue? But when you're deciding if it's a headlining set or an opening set, and you're changing, like, is each song sort of separate? And then do you line them up before you go on and play? And then do you have like interludes and things that you move around? Like how are you so flexible with the tracks? How's that work? That might be obvious.
I mean, they're all kind of queued up in the computer. My drummer programs playback, and so he has everything that we've ever played available, just in case I want to randomly be like, oh, let's bring this one back from the Breland EP and we haven't played it in a year. They're always ready for it. We do go into most of the opening slots with a pretty set list, which is just to say that usually we only get a certain amount of time and you can't go over because there's changeover and then whoever's headlining will come out. Same thing with festivals. But for headline shows and for these radio shows, I usually will go no set list and we'll just say, hey, let's start with this song. And then from there, just pay attention to what I'm saying and respond. And we're pretty much in sync when it comes to those. Like, from that perspective, I'm really just looking at what does the audience need right now? Could they go with another slow song? Do we need to bring the energy back up? And just kind of like DJing it in my head of like, oh, this makes sense next. This makes sense next. And then by the time we're done, I'm like, okay, that's about an hour and a half, you know? And then, like,
do you think you'll take that approach even when you're playing like arenas and stadiums?
I think I'll definitely take that approach.
You're probably the only guy in country, the only artist in country who does that, because most people play the same set list every night, and that seems like the safe, comfortable, responsible, potentially responsible thing to do.
It's probably more responsible, but is it more fun?
I don't know. You tell me. So you're saying that you, when you're at the biggest level, you want to be able to call the shots and play.
Oh, definitely.
You want to be like the Grateful Dead of country music, basically.
Yeah, I think every crowd deserves, like, if I would love for people who come see me in one city to come see me again the next night and get a totally different experience, you know, like, I don't know. I can't assure you right now that when I get to the next level that we'll have, you know, additional people on the team, like lighting and stuff like that. Where
that's
like,
the thing is it's tough to cue those things.
Tough
right?
to cue those things. I don't
Video
have to worry
walls
about
and,
all of that stuff right now, so it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, like I'll just go off the cuff and just cue whatever songs make the most sense. We may have to dial back on that, or maybe we get to a point where, you know, we can have like a little acoustic part of the set where we do maybe 5 or 6 songs where I can have that freedom.
That freedom to kind of,
I'm someone that I'm creative on stage. I'm paying attention to how the audience is responding to things. I'm talking to people in the audience. Like, I'll go out into the crowd. I'll bring people up on stage. It's very participatory, and I think there's an element of creativity that I would love to be able to maintain moving forward. It's just a matter of logistically whether it will continue to make sense for me to do it.
Right. When you played your first show, I think it was opening for Dirks, right? Or it was with Dirks Bentley. Was that the
was
first?
like probably my third show.
What was the first show you played?
I played at my high school.
7 years old. You peed yourself, right?
No.
Or was that earlier? That was way earlier.
Completely different story.
Completely different story.
Completely different story. No,
I
played
cut
a
you off.
show at my high school in 2021.
Okay, way early. He peed himself at 7 years old.
Yeah,
okay, I just want to clear that up.
Clear, that was about 20 years prior.
20 years
almost.
prior. I want to be clear about that. Yeah.
But in terms of playing at my high school, I just came back, played a show. It was the first on-campus performance that they had since before the pandemic. But I only had a few songs out, so I was playing a lot of unreleased material. It was, I was super nervous and new. And then we played Whiskey Jam here in Nashville in June of that year. And then July, we went out and played a couple of dates with Dirks.
So when you're going out and you're playing Dirks, because Dirks is bringing you out kind of on a vibe thing, because he doesn't really know if you're going to be able to be entertaining in his giant concert. Had you'd done a couple shows, but had you just envisioned what you were going to do on stage so much growing up that you knew how to handle it? Like, how did you know? Because performing on stage is a skill.
Yeah.
And I kind of just imagine you were really good at, like, the first couple times you did it. So was that just because you had pictured yourself doing it so many times and you were so musically competent?
I would say that, I don't know if I think there's certain things that come naturally. Me being a vocalist and being comfortable in my skin and comfortable with the music that we're playing definitely helps. So I'm able to come in at a certain level that maybe some people who had similar inexperience may not have been able to do. But if I were to look at the shows that I'm putting on this summer versus the shows I was putting on last summer, it's not even close. Even if I were to look at shows that I'm playing right now to shows I was playing 6 months ago, toward the earlier part of the year, it's not even close because I'm constantly learning something. I get opportunities to open for a lot of different people or to be on festival lineups, fair lineups with people that have done this for a long time, and I'm taking bits and pieces of how they're interacting with the crowd, how they're setting up their songs, how they interact with the band, when they're taking breaks, like when they go hard. I'm paying attention to all of that stuff and incorporating elements of it into what I do. So every show is theoretically getting better. If I were to look month over month, that has for sure been the case.
What's something like, do you have a favorite stage hack or something that you've picked up recently that you saw someone do and you were like, oh my God, I need to do that also?
I can say that I saw Luke Bryan play a couple times, and he's very free with his body on stage, and you've probably seen him hit a couple dance moves before, but he's not afraid or he's not really hesitant to like try something out, and it's the freedom of motion that I think makes the audience relate to him so much, because he's clearly having a good time, and that's represented in the physicality of his movement. He's not really a dancer per se, but it's just there's a freedom of motion that now I'm like, okay, maybe I can be a little bit more free. And I think I definitely do turn up on some of these songs and get there, but even on the ballads, to be comfortable walking around the stage, to look people in the eyes, to really bring it physically as well as focusing on the vocal is something that I've been trying out more.
Yeah. Does anyone give you feedback on your stage presence and performance, or is it like, does your manager Bruce ever give you any tips, or is it kind of just up to you to hold yourself accountable to keep improving as a performer?
I kind of hold myself accountable on everything. So whether that's an interview, on stage, in studio, I have people on my team from a management perspective, label perspective, PR perspective, producers and writers that I work with, but they'll probably all tell you the same thing, which is that I really care about what I do and I really love what I do. So I'm always trying to hold myself to that standard and to level up every time. I hope that I think this is an incredible album that I'm getting ready to put out. I hope that it is also the worst album that I ever put out. You know, like I want album number 2, 3, 4, 5 to continue to get better every single time, because if I stop growing as a vocalist, as an artist, as an entertainer, as a songwriter, then I'm in the wrong business. I got into this to make an impact, but personally, I also want to be the best version of myself. And so I you know, when it comes to playing shows, I'm looking at videos that people tag me in on their stories or on TikTok and looking at myself on stage and then holding that up next to other artists that I respect and saying, am I doing as well as I could be doing? I'm looking at videos of myself against videos of myself from 6 months ago and seeing the improvements there. And it's things that you can feel, you know, like when you get a chance to play more, it's a lot of times trial by fire. There's certain songs that didn't hit as hard in the set, literally just based on how I was introducing it or the energy that I was giving it while I was on stage, that I've looked at videos and critiqued it and gotten feedback to be able to say, all right, well, let me try it like this. And then eventually now we play certain songs that get the crowd going just based on how we're setting it up and how we're playing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Are you not afraid of the sophomore curse? I mean, you're a minute away from having to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is most people who maybe for lack of a better term, more traditional country artists have been writing their first country album for their entire life.
Yeah.
But you kind of came to your sound relatively recently compared to your career as an artist.
Yeah.
So in a way, you've had a year or 2 years to write this record, and your next record, you might have that same period of time, and you're going to be more experienced. Like, do you worry about that? Like, now I'm putting out this record, how am I going to top this record? But you seem like you were pretty confident about it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not worried about anything.
because you're confident, or because why be worried about stuff that I can't do right now today, or that isn't in my control?
Kind of both, but just because I think that if you show up for what it is that you like, if I'm gonna give 100% on album number 2 and it sucks, I gave 100%. I'm not worried about my ability to give 100%. I love what I do, so I'm gonna give 100%. And if I can give my 100%, then there's nothing to worry about. If the outcome isn't what I want it to be and people don't love it, it's a bummer, but I tried my best.
Right.
So I don't worry about anything because I believe in myself. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe that what I'm doing matters on a larger scale, and I'm just scratching the surface of that. Can't be worried about album number 1, album number 2, album number 3. I'm trying to do 20 of these, and I want them all to get better. So I imagine that album number 2 will be a little different to make because the circumstances are going to have changed, whether it's the amount of time I have to make it or, there's going to be more demand for certain types of songs. I'll have more info based on how people respond to the songs on this project, where my market is, and all of those will be factors that I didn't have going into album number 1, but as far as I'm concerned, album number 2 is going to be just as compelling, if not more. And I don't have any of the music already to be able to say that. Other than that, I know when it's time to lock in on that project that I'm going to give it the same amount of energy I gave with this, but I'll be a little bit more experienced.
Yeah, makes sense. Did you come up who were like your biggest musical idols when you were coming up?
Stevie Wonder is my favorite artist of all time.
That makes I see the sort of vocal lines and the flashiness there. But I think it's interesting, like I think almost, and maybe you knew about some of the like insane people that you collaborate with now, like Keith Urban, Dierks Bentley. Like I'm sure they were on your radar.
For sure.
But you might not have idolized them the way you idolized Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. And
I wonder if that makes you a more confident collaborator with them in the room, because maybe you're not as intimidated by them as maybe someone who like grew up idolizing, listening to Keith Urban. Is that possible that you could be a little more confident in the room or not be so like starstruck by them?
I think that's an interesting theory, but no,
You're
think,
still pretty starstruck by them?
No,
Or,
the opposite.
Yeah.
I think by the time I get in a room with someone, it's because I'm supposed to be in the room with them. And
I believe that 100%.
Yeah, so I believe in the timing of that. So I've been in the room with certain artists that I did grow up with. You know, I grew up with Rascal Flatts and got in with Gary, but I wasn't nervous. I was just excited to meet him and excited for us to be able to create and to see each other as peers. Same thing with John Legend. Same thing with Pharrell.
Pharrell, you were with Pharrell recently.
You know, these
in Miami,
are people.
right?
Yeah, these are people that I grew up listening to, and certain gospel artists that I grew up listening to since I was a little kid that I've been able to get in with, collaborate with, form relationships. I don't know. I've always felt like anyone that I listened to and respected. I've always hoped, at least, that I would have the opportunity to get in with them at some point, and that the point at which that occurred was when it was supposed to happen. So whenever it happens, I'm like, oh great, I'm finally doing this thing that I've been waiting to do, and it's not really nerves for me at that point, because I'm like, oh, this is the time that this was supposed to happen. So
Yeah.
there's a freedom and confidence in that, and I also think in the country world, I believe in what I'm doing sonically, you know, and I think people will resonate with blending the genres together, and I'm seeing a lot of people do it in their own way. Hardy is a rock star. He's got he's got some screaming in some of his records. He's like a metalhead on the low, but also packaging it with an incredible lyric and sense of melody and a strong vocal delivery. But he's blending genres in his own way. I'm watching, there's a bunch of people in country that are doing that, and outside of country that kind of can cross over into country, like Lainey, not Lainey Wilson, but an LA&Y. You know, like I'm watching them
It's kind of happening.
bring someone like Alana Springsteen on the road, or for the Jonas Brothers to tour with Kelsey Ballerini, and some of their stuff is acoustic. I'm seeing these cross-genre collaborations and relationships that are forming, and that's part of why I know what I'm doing is viable. But also, even if other people weren't doing it, I love the music that I make, and I would be making it regardless. But it makes me confident going into a room, because I know that I'm bringing what I bring, and the same way that I would trust that anyone I'm getting in with is confident in what they're bringing to the table. We both bring those core competencies together and make something that no one's ever made.
Does your confidence come from just being confident in the work that you've put into your skill set?
Yeah.
Like, have you always been really confident?
I wasn't as confident in what I was doing when I was first starting, and that's because I didn't have anything to rest that confidence on. I was confident in myself and my ability to figure it out, but I wasn't at a level as a songwriter or as a vocalist or as an artist that would have really warranted the level of confidence that I have now, which is I've checked off a lot of the early career boxes that I want. Putting out an album is kind of the last one, but I've had a platinum record. I've had a #1 single. I've been nominated for a major award. That stuff is great, but I believe in the work. You know, I believe in the 10,000 plus hours that I've spent in the studio. I believe in the grind. I believe in the sleepless nights. And I believe that all of that work comes together, and it makes me believe in where I'm at and where I'm headed. You know, I don't think that I got to this point to just get to this point and do nothing else. I believe that this is the beginning of a much longer journey, and I'm buckled in and ready to see where it takes me.
Yeah. So, like, you had this producer mentor of yours, and when you were living in Atlanta, who basically said to you, like, you weren't an artist.
Yeah.
And didn't you show him my truck? And he said, don't put that out. He was like, you're not an artist, and this sucks. He was like, don't put it out. And to me, I'm not as confident as you, Breland. I feel like if someone said that to me, this guy was a successful guy, he had like Grammys and everything, I would be like, all right, maybe it sucks. You know what? I'm not gonna put it out. But you were like, screw this. Like, you have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And at that point, nobody knew who you were, and you weren't collaborating with superstars.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I was you, which I'm not, but I would have been very insecure about my music. And if someone who was really big said, don't put it out, I probably wouldn't have put it out. I think it's like, how did you get the confidence to put it out? Maybe it's obvious, but to me it just seems interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you were in that position, that you should believe in yourself, like, straight up. There's no one that
it's not that I wouldn't believe in myself. I would just think maybe this is not the moment to make my debut song. Maybe it's the next thing I write, or maybe it's the next thing.
Maybe.
I would feel
you
like
gotta-
maybe this isn't the thing.
You just gotta trust your gut. Like I've always trusted my gut on everything. I put this album together based on trusting my gut. There are certain songs that I really love that could have made it onto this project. We could have added more songs, but I was like, this is right, and I had to believe that. I would say I had the same belief back when I put my truck out, which is like, there's something special about this song. The origin of the song coming about, the fact that I was told not to put it out, where we were in history at that time, where I was in my career at that time. I was ready to put a song out and was waiting to make something that felt different than everything else that I was hearing, and I felt like this accomplished that, and there was an early demand for it just from the snippet I had posted on Instagram at the time. And I'm like, all right, like this feels like a good time to put it out, and also if it does nothing and I want to put out a completely different thing later, I put it out myself. I could just delete it.
Yeah, right.
Like
the stakes are pretty low.
Yeah, the stakes are pretty low. I'm like, it's a catchy song. Worst case scenario, I've got something that I love. Best case scenario, I've got something that a lot of people love.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. So you put it out, and it's just crazy to me. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I just feel like I think it's incredible that this guy didn't have more of an impact on you. He didn't bring you down that much. You kind of just like threw him to the wayside, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of relationship where I was able to identify why he felt the way that he felt. He didn't want me to put out music because he wanted me to focus on writing songs, which at the time was making him money because of his connection on the production side to all of those songs. If I started putting out my own music, especially if that music was outside of traditional R&B and hip hop, where he would be able to play a more key role, he would lose control over the product that was Breland, the pinpoint guard, as a songwriter. And so selfishly, he never wanted me to level up in whatever ways I was actually leveling up. And I think when you're a real mentor to someone, you should want what's best for them and be able to correctly identify what's best for them. He wasn't able to do that, and had then later revealed himself to not even have my best interest at heart in general, based on how he responded to the success of that song. So I learned a lot through that relationship, and in moving to Nashville, realizing that I don't have the energy or the desire to have anyone around me or in my circle that doesn't believe in what I'm doing, and vice versa. I can't have people in my life that are going to show up when things are good and disappear when things are quiet. I can't have people that doubt where we're headed, and vice versa. I don't want to be in people's lives where I don't feel that way about them. Like I want to have a community of people that build each other up, that hold each other accountable, that where we can all win together. And so I think I've put together a really good team of people creatively and administratively that are bought in, and they believe in what it is that we're building, and we're truly building it together. And I don't have a ton of ego on my team, me personally, or among the different individuals on the team. We're all very collaborative, and that starts top down. So anytime you have an artist that has publishers and publicists and producers and writers and agents and a label, I have a lot of people that I work with and or that are directly employed to me. So I have to approach everything as a CEO, right? And as CEO of Team Breland, my perspective and my approach matters, because that informs how everyone else feels. I have to be able to let people on my team know when they are and aren't doing a good job, and be able to build them up.
How do you do that? Like, what's an example of someone not doing a great job?
I would say if I get like overbooked with a bunch of stuff and some of it doesn't make sense, to be like, hey, this doesn't make sense in the future. Let's not do this, But I'm able to approach that in a way that I have a deep level of respect for everyone on my team. So no one's going to feel a type of way if I have to approach something like that, because they know that I'm coming at it from I want us to win and you want us to win. So we're on the same page. It's just a matter of how we specifically do that, right? But when you can create a culture where everyone wants to get the work done and everyone wants to do as good a job as possible, that's why we've been able to accomplish so much in a short amount of time. It's because my co-writers and co-producers on this album all put in the time and they put in the work, and they didn't just settle for an okay song. They wanted it to be as great as possible. We went back and forth on mix notes. We revised lyrics. We revised instrumentation. We brought in live instruments. From a PR perspective, there are certain things that I might want to say or might not want to say that I'm going to trust their judgment in what's a good look for an interview and what types of things we might want to stay away from and what types of pieces I may want to publish or not. You know, like there's a great deal of trust on Team Breland, where we are all a part of something that we think is going to be significant for the music industry and for the world. And if I encounter people who don't contribute positively to that, there's no space for them. So I couldn't maintain the relationship that I had with that producer in Atlanta because he revealed himself to not be a good team player. The people that I have on the team now are the ones that have helped facilitate all of the growth that I've experienced over the past 2 years.
Right. Do you have a sense, I have a lot of artists on the show, and maybe they're as involved as you seem to be, but maybe they just don't talk about it on the podcast, or maybe they talk about other things. But you just seem very hands-on, very meticulous, and like you have a close eye on everything that everyone's doing in a good way because it's your career, and if no one's gonna care more than you're gonna care, right?
Right.
But do you have a sense among your peers? Do you feel like you're maybe a little more hands-on or a little more in the weeds with your team and how everything is going than maybe some of your peers are?
I don't know how involved all of my peers are, but I would say that there are certain things that are truly outside of my scope, right? Like I'm not naturally the most fashionable guy.
I feel like every time I see you, Breland, you look incredibly fashionable.
But you want to know why? Because
you have a stylist or whatever.
Because I have a stylist named Molly who does a great job, and she makes sure that I look good, so I don't have to wonder whether I'm going to look good. I trust her eye, and she's done a great job. But I don't have to check with Molly all the time to be like, oh, like, am I going to look good? Because we've built up that level of trust in the rapport where I know when she comes with something, I'm like, okay, cool. And she'll give me an option, say, do you feel about this or about this? But beyond that, I'm generally going to give her free rein to do what she does. And because there's trust, while I am very hands-on in everything and making sure that things are running smoothly, I'm also aware of when people are doing a great job, to just literally be able to let them do their job. It's not my goal to be super in the weeds on every single thing that's happening, so long as everyone is doing what needs to be done. And I would say by and large, that tends to be what happens. So I'm involved in that if I ever need to step in and be like, oh, what about this? And also involved because I care about what I'm doing, as you said. And I think that my skill set as a personality lends itself to doing a lot of, helping people do their jobs. But everyone on my team does a great job, and that's why they're on the team, because I trust them to be able to get it done. And when you have that level of trust and belief, it makes it easier for me to go out and step on stage and be confident, knowing that everyone did their job to help me get to that point, and that my band is going to be there, and that, you know what I mean? That's why I don't worry about anything.
God, it's good to be Breland.
Yeah.
Doesn't worry about anything.
I'm not worried
I still respect that. I worry about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good way to live, though. Is just, you surround. What's the takeaway? Surround yourself with the best people.
Surround yourself with the
Trust
best people.
them.
Have a mission statement.
Your mission statement is country to everyone, right? Or
literally.
to expand the country format.
Straight
right?
up.
That's the mission statement.
And everybody on the team has bought into that.
This is what I'm saying, though. I don't think many country artists have mission statements. Maybe they do, and I just don't know about them.
You should ask people in the future what their mission statement is and see what they give you.
Do you know of other country artists that have mission statements?
I can't definitively say that I do or don't. I'm sure some of them do. You would have to ask.
Wait, are you saying that you might know of some, but it's just maybe a little private?
I could probably imagine what certain
some
people's mission statements are, but I won't put words in their mouth. I would be curious to hear what everyone says.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I see. No one talks about having a mission statement though. But you studied business in college.
Yeah.
Do you read a lot of business books or like a lot of?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to read a lot in general. Recently, I've been on a fiction kick just because I like where it takes my brain. But yeah, I'm someone that believes that I am a business. Like I'm a person first, and that balance is important. To not just be a business all the time, but I'm also a product and I'm also a service. So you can download my music, you can buy my merch, and you can also book me to come play a show somewhere or to come speak at an event. So I have to think about what I'm doing from a business perspective. And as the CEO of that business, as I said, I have to know when to delineate and also know when I need to take control of something and make sure that everything is running a certain way. And when you have a strong group of people that are helping facilitate all of that stuff, you can have the level of confidence to know, okay, we're all aligned on where we're trying to go and where we want this to look like. All right, break. Team, go do what you do.
Yeah.
And putting together this project has made me even more confident in all of the different people that I have on the team, because I didn't have to sit in the studio every single hour as some of these songs were getting produced out, because I trust my producers, Sam Sumser and Sean Small. I trust them to get it done, and they know what I like because we've built that rapport.
I have a feeling Breland comes across as a very nice guy. I'm sure he is. He's got a high lift rating. I have a feeling if you cross him, if you screw something up on the team, I think he could be pretty aggressive pretty quickly.
You think so?
Maybe not aggressive, but I think you don't take any bullshit. Like if someone's
definitely not
causing bullshit on the team, you're quick to be like, "Hey, cut that out. You're out of here."
It's also about how you approach it, because I approach everything with a smile, with a certain level of respect that
I think you do.
I'm not going to go off on you and be like, yo, if you don't, you know what I mean? Like that's just not my energy. I don't think that accomplishes anything. And I think you're more likely to set someone off on a bad path if you approach it that way. I'm like, I want you to know that I care about you and I respect you and the work that we do together. It is with that reason that, with that in mind, that I have to let you know we can do better on this. And I want to see you do better. It's about how you approach it.
Yeah, right. You've had a lot of amazing looks, rightfully so, whether it's like DSPs shouting you out and making you like their featured artist, or collaborations, or getting onto award shows. And I'm sure there's a ton of other opportunities that you've had from your artistry. Do you have a sense of which of those things maybe connect you the most to new fans or bring more fans into your fan base? Do you have a sense of what does a really great job of that?
Yeah.
Or is it kind of everything across the board equals growing of fans?
It's interesting because back during CMA Fest, it was my first time really doing meet and greets with a bunch of different people, and seeing that someone might have heard me on a podcast, someone may have I always like to ask them, how did you discover me? Where did you find my music? And it's a bunch of different things. It might have been the Today Show. It might have been, me opening for, Russell Dickerson. It may have been a headline show of mine in a random city, or it might have, there's so many different ways that people discover something, a playlist or, a commercial or whatever. Like, people discover music in a lot of different ways. So I want to give credit to everyone, but I definitely think with the absence of country radio and live shows for as long as I didn't have either of those part of the equation, that DSPs played a really big part, and social media has played a really big part, to be able to release a song like Praise the Lord with a viral video, or for Throwback, which had a viral video, and obviously My Truck with a viral video, and then to have streaming success and support from groups like Spotify to put me on their hot country artist to watch this year, or Amazon making me the breakthrough artist, which is an all genre consideration, or YouTube making me their artist on the rise last summer. These are all things that definitely help and help get eyeballs on what we're doing. And then I think ultimately the fans connect with the music and share the music with one another, and I think country music as a community is really good at embracing that. And when I play at festivals, there are songs I don't expect people to necessarily know, but they'll either learn them there, or I'm surprised to see that they know them, and
Right.
I think there's a million different ways that it gets to that point, but streaming has been a big part of that for me thus far, and I'm excited to grow into some new areas.
Right. Like Seth Godin always says, the key to marketing is convincing someone that people like us do things like this, and basically saying that people like us consume this product, whatever it is. And I feel like when you collab with so many great artists, it sends a message that the industry and these artists are saying, Breland's the guy, he's the cat, we're approving of him, so you as a fan should check his music out and get on board. Have you sort of sensed that, like, when you get on all these collaborations, does it kind of have that effect that fans go, whoa, who's this Breland guy? Dierks Bentley approves of him.
Yeah.
I should check out his music. Or,
yeah,
right? Like, does that happen?
Helps. Yeah, when you get on a song with someone, you're sharing audiences.
Right.
So if someone has a bigger audience than you, like a Dierks Bentley who's had 20 number ones and has been a massive success touring, over the past 20 years, that cosign matters, especially for someone like me that is making music that doesn't fall super cleanly into the country box, and some of these songs are more progressive sonically. You don't always expect to get that support from some of the bigger artists, but for me to have gotten it, I think has helped a lot. And I think really what has helped me in Nashville, at least, is being able to get in the room with people and then make songs that we both love, because all of these collabs, none of these collabs would have happened if I had come in and not done something and them not done something. If there's no chemistry, it just won't happen. But we have creative chemistry, we're able to meet in the middle of wherever their bread and butter is and my bread and butter and make something unique. Me and Keith have 4 songs out together so far, 2 that we're each featured on, and then 2 that we are co-writers on, and all of them sound entirely different. Every time we get in, we make something different. And I feel the same way about a lot of people that I write with, where there's a lot of different types of things that we can do at a high level. So, I think that's part of the appeal in Nashville, is that people know that I'm writing things that are a little different, and they're curious to see what they would sound like on my sound, and I'm curious to see what I might sound like on theirs. And more often than not, it leads to some great music.
Yeah, right. So Breland's not here for his health. He's got a new album coming out, Cross Country. I think actually by the time you listen to this, it'll already be out on DSP. So check it out, Breland, Cross Country. A lot of great writers on these songs.
Yep.
Rocky Block wrote 2 of them.
Yep.
To me, Rocky Block is the smoothest guy in the room. Like, what does he bring into a writer's room? How does Rocky Block? If you're listening to this and you're a fan, you might not even know who Rocky Block is.
Yeah.
But he's one of the coolest cats in Nashville. Take my word for it. And Breland might be able to attest as well.
Yeah.
What does he bring into the writer's room?
Rocky Block is just the homie, man. Before even acknowledging his talent, I just want to acknowledge, he's one of the co-founders of this cross-country sound, between For What It's Worth and Praise the Lord on this project, to Grits and Glamour and High Horse off of Nelly's project, to a bunch of other songs that we've worked on together that aren't even out yet, to all the stuff that he's doing on his own. He's just a good dude, and anytime I get in with him, I know we're going to make something great. He's one of the only people that I trust in a pinch to get in as a co-writer with me. And it's honestly surprising that he only has 2 songs on this album because of how often we write and how many great songs we've made. But I think he's one of the most talented up and coming, and not even up and coming. He's here, he's here. He's someone that he brings great concepts to the room. Praise the Lord was a concept of his. We heard the track and that loop, and he was like, what about praise the Lord? And you can praise the Lord for all of these different things, and just kind of came out with that idea.
Did he bring in the George Strait sample? Was that Rocky who brought that in?
No. For which song are you referring to?
Doesn't Praise the Lord have a George Strait sample at the beginning?
No, it does not.
Do any of your songs, did I make this up?
I don't have...
Hang on.
I don't have any... Well, let me think about that before I say that.
Hang on. No, you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the Nelly song. High
Horse does have a George Strait
sample on it.
correct.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Praise the Lord does not. Yeah.
Yeah, High Horse does have a George Strait sample. No, that was a Sam Sumser
Who brought that in?
And usually the producers will come with that, but
for Praise the Lord, Rocky brought in kind of that little bit, that guitar intro and that thing.
No, that was a Kyle Fishman and Jacob Durrett who came with that, but Rocky came with the concept of saying, oh, this is churchy, what if we do Praise the Lord for all of these different things, and kind of had the punchline written out, and then we filled in the gaps. We wrote that song incredibly quickly and left the second verse open for a potential Thomas Rhett feature, and I knew I wanted to get Thomas on it off rip, and we were able to get that done. But with Rocky, he's someone he's like a Swiss Army knife, and we write so well together because we both do a lot of the same things well and fill in the gaps for whatever we might be missing. So sometimes I might be a concept guy. I'm always a melody guy. Pretty strong with lyrics and punchline. He's really good at all of those same things. We have similar ears in terms of a melody that I would agree or not agree on, he would agree and not agree on. So we come to the right conclusions on these songs a lot of the time. And based on the success of Praise the Lord, with it being, a gold single, it's one of those things where I'm like, Rocky helped make that happen. And I think for what it's worth is going to be another one that people respond really well to. And we started playing it on the road and people enjoy it. So I'm like, I know that Rocky has the ear of today and tomorrow, and I imagine that he'll play a really big part in whatever the next project is.
When you're in the room with someone like Rocky versus someone like Ashley Gorley, who has a cut on this new album, do you go in with like I feel like I would almost think with someone like Rocky, you could be like, we're bros. Like you could probably be a little more relaxed or maybe even a little more yourself, where I feel like when you're with someone like Ashley, who's like maybe a little bit older than you, been around a lot longer, has 100 number ones pretty close to it. Like I feel like I would be leveling up, or I would be trying to be a different version of myself around Ashley than I am around Rocky, right? Is that true? Like is it more fun going in with Rocky because he's a peer and you can be a little more
It's a great question.
Natural?
I think in general I try to come into each wanting to both bring the best ideas that I have while also being receptive to whatever's coming at me. With Rocky, it's a little different because we might write something at my house, so there is a level.
That's what I mean. It's
there's
casual,
a level of comfort that we have there. But even when I do get in with someone like, an Ashley Gorley or Ernest or Ryan Hurd, or Sam Hunt, all of whom are a part of this project, and they've all had a lot of success as songwriters and are a little bit more established than me and Rocky. I'm still coming into it with the same level of confidence. I'm just also like, if I don't know them as well, I want to make sure that I'm not going too hard, that I'm not fitting in the right way. Like fit is so important for me. The reason that I call myself the pinpoint guard is because I'm a really good facilitator in rooms. So there might be a day where I'm like, oh, I'm on fire and I'm going to probably end up writing almost everything that happens here, and I'm going to come up with all the ideas. And then there are days where I'm like, oh, this person is hot. Let's give them the ball and see what they've got. Or someone else who has a great concept, they just don't quite know how to finish it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's figure it out. And that's something that I'm really good at in the writing room, and why I like to write with other people is because I can identify people's strengths in those moments. And I think with someone like an Ashley, where County Line came out of maybe the first or second time that we had ever written together, and we were also in the room with Sam and Ernest writing that song. Everyone in that room does a lot of things really well. So, I was more so trying to figure out where I fit in and where I wanted to contribute. And we all did a really good job of making sure that everyone's ideas were heard. That's a little different when you're in with the homie that you write with all the time and you've already built that rapport to know where you're at. But yeah, I mean, much respect to everyone that's on this project. It's not easy to get a cut on this project in general because it's such a unique sound, and we're coming with a new subgenre of music. It'll probably be easier to make album 2 because we'll have album 1 as reference, where people can listen to album 1 and be like, oh, actually this would be a good song to pitch for Breland that they might not have known would have been a good song to pitch.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, I'm getting the wrap it up sign from the team over here.
Naturally.
The Breland's publicists. Short version is you need to go and you need to listen to Cross Country, which is going to be out by the time you listen to this podcast. It's going to be on all your DSPs. The music video for Cross Country is great. I think everybody should go check it out. It shows Breland split screen with 2 alternate realities of what could happen down different paths.
Yes,
and I
sir.
think you need to check out the music video. I also think you need to listen to Natural, which is kind of like why am I blanking on the artist's name?
Shania Twain.
Thank you. It's like a Shania Twain song.
Yeah.
That's like new and hip and fresh. You gotta listen to Natural. I haven't heard anything else on the record that isn't
Okay.
already out. Nobody
You'll-
sent me a link or anything.
You'll hear it.
Well, I'm very excited to hear it. I'm sure it's gonna be incredible because
Yeah.
everybody's behind Breland. You've got the best people behind you, and you just bring a confidence and a coolness. I'm surprised that you don't have good fashion because I feel like every time I see you, you're always well dressed. By the way, I want to ask you one last thing, which is do you mentor anyone? Like, is there anyone right now that you feel like you're mentoring?
Yeah, there are a couple people that are in that camp. Zach Mano, who I signed to a publishing deal here in town. I've got another friend named Cunningham who's out in LA. I may be getting him to move to Nashville. Both really incredible writers and producers that if I can do anything to help them out, whether I'm directly attached to it or not, I want to see them win.
So here we go, because we're running out of time, so we got to be super quick. You've gotten some weird texts from country artists who go, it's Keith, parentheses, urban, or like, it's Dirks, Bentley, parentheses, country singer.
Yeah.
What do you text someone if you're like, hey, it's Breland, country singer? What do
Yeah.
you say?
I would say, yo, what's up? It's Breland. You already know what's going on. How you feel?
You already know what's going on. That's good. That's where some of these other country artists could take a page out of your book. You already know who I am.
You know what's going on,
Let's
man.
jump into it, okay?
let's make
Dirks
some
Bentley, country singer. We know you're a country
Yes,
singer, Dirks
sir.
Bentley. Breland, you already know what's going on. Breland, thanks for coming on the podcast. Your schedule's crazy, man. This is release week, so
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure everything's busy. Release party on Thursday. I'm going to be there. I'm super excited
Word.
for it. Cross Country, the album, it's going to be out now by the time you listen to it. Check it out. Breland, thanks for coming on the show, man. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate it.